Hi, everybody. Oh, I love this. Hi. Welcome, everyone, back to the April 2025 Public Art Committee meeting. It's great to see all of you here again. Naomi, thank you so much for chairing the previous Art Commission PAC meeting. Apologies for the inconvenience, but yes, a lot of things are happening, as I can see, with the whole buzz about the airport.
Yes, let's get our roster, our call.
Start with the roll call. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I got it. Okay, Deepa Subramanian,
I'm here.
Federico Galavis, absent. Bob Ramirez, Bob Ramirez is here.
Didn't turn your microphone.
Anna Bogosian. Here. Julia Carnahan, here. David Kaplan.
Here.
Amazing. Before we get started, this meeting is going to be recorded. So if you do want your voice to be, actually, we ask that you please use the microphone. If you don't use the microphone, your voice will not be picked up on the recording. You just tap the little pad in the middle of the microphone. It'll light up blue, and then you tap it again, it'll turn off, and that means that you're no longer on the mic. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Deepa.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's just another small introduction before we actually get on. There's a little bit of a reshuffling of the agenda. But yes, welcome all of you. And all I have to say is there's lots going on, looks like, in the city of Santa Monica and the world. So yeah, as far as Santa Monica is concerned, yeah, it's the buzz is the airport and the park. And I guess all of you would have received the letter of interest that has been sent by the city. I urge all of you to participate in bringing in any new ideas or collaborations or partnerships or whatever that you may want to recommend to the PAC for this. Is most welcome. Yeah, I think that's one point that I wanted to announce before we actually began this. So right across to item number 10, the public comment. Here we have two members. I guess, Jade, will you take this forward, please? Say again?
We need a vote to move it up from the bottom to the top of the agenda.
Let's do that. I second it.
David Kaplan moves.
I second it.
Deepa seconds.
Right.
Motion passed. So we'll go ahead and begin with Michael Masucci for public comment.
Hey there. Some of you know me.
Michael, can you please use the microphone and tap the pad?
Thank you. My name is Michael Masucci. I am an arts commissioner, although soon to be terming off. For 6 years, I chaired this committee. I've chaired a few other committees over the years, but I'm here really on behalf of an artist named John Nine. John is interested in making a very ambitious proposal that he has all of the artistic and technical skills to follow through on. He has some very serious potential for getting this funded, but he would like to get your endorsement, your feedback, and your support. Either next month or the month after, John and I will be making a formal PowerPoint presentation about what he's imagining. John is one of the world's foremost authorities on the integration of high technology and art. He's worked with everyone from the Guggenheim to Cirque du Soleil, and from the Los Angeles Theater Center to the Los Angeles International Airport, and pretty much everyone in between. He's one of the pioneers in very large-scale imaging, and he has an idea for a piece that is part public art. It would be the largest, I believe, public art piece in Santa Monica, part architecture, because it would also be the interior of which would be a venue for intimate live performance, dance, music, and it would be built out of some of the most advanced imaging technology that exists. The idea is that this would be an art piece that could not have been done 10 years ago. It would, however, respect the several thousand years of history that is Santa Monica. It would seek collaborative input and creative input from all of the vested interests in the communities of Santa Monica, from the indigenous people to the people that came afterwards, as well as the world. In addition to himself, he has on board Iris Pan, originally from China, then by way of MIT and Harvard, one of the world's leading experts on artificial intelligence art, AR and VR art. She is on board. She's also a principal designer at Amazon. Dr. Gregory Carpenter, an epidemiologist and computer scientist, is on board, and a number of eco-architects. This piece would be solar-powered, completely zero toxic, zero energy consumption to the grid, and it would be an exemplar of the best thinking of art and science. And we look forward to presenting it to you formally with architectural imagery, with some animations, with the various stakeholders and partners that have already expressed interest. And with your support, this project can go to a number of patrons and funders that are already very interested. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank
Okay.
you, Michael. Are we allowed to comment on it? No. Not at this point. Yeah, but it's a great. I think all I can say is a great idea. I think it's worth exploring. But thank you, Michael. Yeah, of course. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next presenter is Mark Morris. And then, Mark, you'll have 2 minutes to present.
Okay, I have a couple of visual aids. A few notes. I'm Mark Morris. I'm here today to remind you of a 117-acre site in the city that has been forgotten. The Santa Monica History Museum has no complete photo record of this historic site. It's the site of the Water Garden business complex and the surrounding area, and it used to be the Simons Brick Works. Simons was the largest brick maker in the country, and their bricks were used to build Royce Hall at UCLA, the Disney Studios, many mansions in Santa Monica until the factory closed in 1935. The huge industrial site sat abandoned and decaying until the early 1950s. During that time, one of the most respected movie art directors, Ben Carre, spent time visiting the site. He was famous for designing classic films like The Jazz Singer, Lon Chaney's Phantom of the Opera. He was also a plein air painter and a designer of huge movie backdrops at MGM. At work, he designed backdrops for The Wizard of Oz, Singing in the Rain, An American in Paris, North by Northwest, Forbidden Planet, and hundreds more. For relaxation, he painted 15 watercolors, which you see a few, of the abandoned Simons buildings. They represent literally
30 seconds.
The only complete visual record of this chapter of history. They've never been exhibited, and I'm here to suggest that the Arts Commission, in keeping with its mission to integrate art into the daily life of the community, to expand and deepen the role of arts in education and history, to honor and support artistic achievement, should seriously consider an exhibition or the acquisition of the paintings, since the city of Santa Monica is their true and proper home. They shouldn't be hidden away in a private collection. And as we all know, we're losing history every year. Look at the Will Rogers Ranch House. So I consider this sort of an important piece of history to be saved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you want to see the others, I have them here.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And yeah, of course, we'll have a little more, detailed look into this and see how it fits into the history and character of the city of Santa Monica, and I'm sure it does. Thank you again.
I have a leave behind that has some more detail if
Yeah.
you want.
Gladding McBean also
Thank
had
you.
a plant there for a while, I believe. Gladding McBean, the terracotta people, I believe, were located there as well.
Yeah. Okay, so now we start the meeting. It's a pretty lean agenda again. I guess I'll hand this over to Naomi for the staff update.
Hi, everyone. Next slide, please. We, since our last meeting, just wanted to update that we had our Arts Month launch. Our poet laureate spoke the proclamation, which we have copies at the front desk here. Next slide. And we also had the mayor come to the Otis report on the creative economy, and we brought some of those booklets. There's also a creative economy dashboard. It's a really amazing tool when you're making the case for the arts throughout the state and in LA County. If you're interested in how many creative jobs there are and what we can do to support the nonprofit arts, which are the feeder to these creative jobs, you can take a look at that at otis.edu. Next slide.
Naomi. Just really quick as well, we only have 2 report books, but there is a QR code that you can scan that does have that book as well.
Yeah, it's a great resource. Next slide. And the event was very well attended. I know we saw some of you there. We had an amazing gallery tour of the Refractions exhibit, which is closing May 11th. So if you haven't gotten down to the Beach House to take a look at it, I really recommend you take a look. One of the artists, River Garza, who's standing with the yellow shoes there, gave a great tour of the whole exhibit, and a lot of really rapt audience followed him around. And Arts for LA came, Metzley Projects came and did a workshop, printmaking workshop, and a good time was had by all. And just in addition, next slide, we had a temporary public artwork by Kate Mueller that was just up for that event. And it's an example of our temporary permit process where folks can apply and be reviewed by the Art of Recovery for temporary activations. Next slide. I think that might be it. I know that I said in our March meeting that Tanya Guiniga's tile mural is now up. We have an unveiling event on Tuesday, May 20th, which is kind of the start of Public Works Week, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at City Yards. It is primarily for City Yards staff, the workers who drive the trucks and everything, but of course you are all absolutely welcome to come. We'll probably have tamales, and Tanya will be there to talk about the artwork. Tanya will be unveiling the touchstones. She created 12 larger, but not as large as the mural, plaques that are going to be at the various divisions at City Yards. So those focus on the work of the specific trade shops that are there. So that'll be fun to see as well. And I think that might be, and later this month, Deborah Scacco, the other artist on site at City Yards, will have posters that are debuting on the trash trucks. So if you see the trash trucks driving around the city with beautiful portraits of the workers on the side of the trucks, that's Deborah's work. Thank you.
Isn't that the one that was exhibited at the Annenberg?
Some of
Beach House?
the truck posters are also at Gandara Park on the fencing there. So no, not at the Beach House, but we are actually planning an exhibit for the end of Deborah's residency at the Beach House that should go in October. So quite a ways away.
Okay. Thank you, Naomi.
Yeah,
and can we move on to the approval of the Public Art Committee meeting, minutes of the meeting, previous months?
Yes, so did everybody see the minutes in the packet? If we could get a vote on that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, anyone? Okay. Thank you. So moving on, the study session, I think,
Call the vote after the...
Pardon me?
Motion second, and then raising hands. All in favor? All in favor who were there in March? And any abstentions? No. Okay, unanimous.
Okay. So coming to the, the digital kiosks that we had in the interim, we had a meeting on Zoom with Federico Galvez, and he had a proposal for digital kiosks at the city. Naomi, would you like to brief upon that?
Yeah, I wonder if everyone was able to take a look at the packet, which has a little bit of an info item on this. We in the
Was
info
it
item,
attached to the file?
yes, it was included
I
in the
did
packet.
get a chance to see that, yeah.
I was wondering if anybody had any questions about that, but I can also go through it
Yeah.
bit by bit. Yeah. So the idea of the digital kiosk question was brought by Federico, who unfortunately isn't here today, but he did have some questions about how we might increase arts and culture representation on the digital kiosks. If you're not familiar, digital kiosks debuted, I think they started their rollout last year. You can see one just down the street here on the corner of Main. They are operated by Big Outdoor. There are 25 kiosks right now in that first wave that have been rolled out. They're pretty much up and down the coastal zone area. They're not further east than, I think, 4th Street. There's 3 ways that arts and culture can get represented on these kiosks. So 2 of them are already happening. There's a calendar function. The kiosks pull calendar listings from Santa Monica Travel and Tourism. So people can put their arts and culture events up on there, and they get fed into the kiosks automatically. And then so anybody who walks up and is looking at the calendar, they can see what's happening today. They can see that the Crow's doing a comedy festival, etc. The second way is the permanent wayfinding function of the kiosk. You can walk up to the kiosk and say, where's the Miles Playhouse, or where's the nearest theater? And it'll show you, it's basically a Google map of what's in the area. So if you look for galleries or what have you, you can find art and culture, permanent wayfinding type things. We're also working with Big Outdoor to really focus on the public art aspect. So when you look for public art, you'll see the public art that's around these kiosks. The kiosks are fun in that they spit out a QR code. With your phone, you can get the direct directions to whatever you searched for. And then third, the city has negotiated 6 minutes per hour of ad time on these kiosks.
Right.
So that's the question that Federico brought up, is can we have more art and culture represented on the ad time, the city content, it's called. So the question for the PAC and eventually for the Arts Commission is, can we get some guidelines, some suggestions for what kind of policies make sense for increasing art and culture representation? Right now, the 10%, the 6 minutes of time is completely taken up by city emergency information, city program information, et cetera. But we can certainly advocate for a greater representation of standalone artworks curated by outside, or artworks that are owned in the city and could be displayed digitally across the kiosks, or other possibilities. So that's the discussion
But is
today.
that within the purview of the Arts Commission, or is it a policy that only the city can make, because it involves digital, it's almost like a billboard, in a city of, particularly in the city of Santa Monica, where there is a beachy vibe. Is there a policy that the city has for digital art of this nature?
So in the sort of macro view, the city has a municipal code that includes information about signage in general. For the Big Outdoor franchise, there was a contract made for this company, this private company, to put advertising in the public right-of-way. And some of the code that oversees that has been altered to allow for digital signage in the public right-of-way. So this body and the Arts Commission doesn't have purview over that particular. However, there are always, in that the commission can suggest policy to the city council. There are ways that the commission might say, for future revisions to the code, we suggest this or that. And the way that the PAC makes recommendations to the Arts Commission for that is how that could be fed up to city
Right.
council.
How many do we have, by the way? Do we have any?
25 kiosks.
25?
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's in the info item that I sent around, there's a web page that you can look on the santamonica.gov that has more information about the digital kiosks. One thing I was curious about was how much it costs to actually book ad time on them, because perhaps we could do fundraising for arts and culture organizations to have ad time as one of the ways to be represented.
Okay. So, however, we would like to take it forward with Federico, I guess, since he has initiated this project. So we'll see how it pans out. And moving on, is there any number 6, 7
We
written
could have more
communication?
of a discussion if you liked.
Yeah, I opened the discussion. If anybody would like to say any inputs from the members?
I guess I haven't seen them, so the other 54 minutes are straight commercial advertisements.
That's right.
And then you overrule that when you ask for directions or something. It's clear from the screen that you can just,
City content negotiated on these is 10% of the overall time.
yeah.
So 6 minutes per hour is
It's the
devoted to
10%'s the limitation.
city content. Yeah, and I would say it's probably not reasonable for us to demand all of that 10% of city time because
We should renegotiate.
many other departments
Okay.
have material up. But this body could definitely recommend that the city consider, some percentage of the 10%, some slice is devoted to arts and culture.
So I have a question. Of those 6 minutes or percentage, was Federico, because I was there at one of the meetings that he brought it up, but I really didn't get it clear. Is he suggesting that we suggest actual art that's going to be represented on it, or art organizations? That's where I'm a little confused as to what it is that's being asked of us to recommend.
Federico brought to us a very specific proposal, a little too granular for the committee or the commission. What we're really looking for is policy guidelines as to what kind of things are appropriate to include in the city content, whether it's further promotion of the city collection or promotion of outside collections, whether it's appropriate to conduct an open call for curators to propose things. First, of course, we'd have to get an agreement to use some slice of the 10%.
Yes.
But if we are able to do that, what kind of things should we be pushing to put?
Thank you. And what would the criteria be to determine it?
Yeah.
I also think that when we talk about percentage of time, there's something programmatic about saying the first X number of seconds or minutes on every hour should be this programmatic cultural element,
Yeah.
and it could be serialized. It could go from, at the top of an hour, it's the next part of something. So you can think a little bit more broadly around what those guidelines could be. I think what we're interested in the body to discuss, either at this meeting or in a future meeting, is what is the criteria and how do we determine what kind of projects or artwork would be eligible. Again, with the commissioner bringing forward a very specific project, it opened up a series of questions of how are those decisions made and how do we make sure that this is a public process inside of advocating for what is the time that we're thinking that
Yeah.
could be allocated.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Is there a large body of city-owned artworks?
Yes, there are over 200 artworks in the art bank, and there's 70 public artworks scattered across the public parks.
So can we recommend that the city have some of the time to feature city artworks?
We can definitely do
That's
so.
actually a very good idea.
We can definitely do so. Another note that I had in the info item is the current format is 15-second slides for these ad tiles. So if we, for example, requested 30% of the 10%, that would be 3 ad tiles, which would be 45 seconds worth of 3 things. So we're talking about a very small section for this, but the discussion could help us come to some understanding about future negotiations with other things like digital billboards if they come before us, and things like that. So this particular big outdoor agreement has been negotiated for X number of years and isn't coming up for renewal yet, but policies for future.
Yeah, and if I can expand, the policy for the future could be any other kind of digital billboards or where we see maybe electronic signage in the public way, right away, that this is where these kinds of guidelines or policies may also be applicable in the future.
Also, yeah,
I think the commissioner will be able to speak at the discussion at the next meeting. That's possible to bring up during the commissioner member items.
Okay. It's just a thought that, when you say you have advertisements as part of the billboards, it's also another way of generating revenue for the city is to rent the space for the artists, the local artists. Is that considered as...
So the city or another entity raising funds to purchase ad time would be a potential suggestion.
renting space on the digital space.
I noted in the info item that this all came about because council was looking for ways to generate revenue. So they are most interested in ways that these ad tiles could be sold because that trickles over to the city.
Yeah.
Is there any funding to support a media curator or to commission artwork that would at some point appear on the kiosks? Or is that possible somewhere down the road once we're past the budget emergency?
That could definitely be a possibility and one of the suite of options that this body might suggest to put together. We don't currently have that program, and we don't currently have the funding for it, but it's a possibility.
Great. Anything else? Bob? Any inputs? Any inputs from you? Yeah. Okay.
Do we have an image of what they look like and how people interact with them?
Next slide.
Is it just passive?
So I went down to the one on the corner here and took some pictures. One thing is that the kiosk is kind of a reproduction of the city website. So you'll see city pages like arts and culture can be kind of pulled up from the kiosk. It's a touch screen, so it's a very tactile, interactive. And I also took pictures of the calendar, which is the center column here. You can enter the calendar function. And then on the right here is the search function for mapping, and that's the QR code that it'll spit out for you depending on where you are and give you directions.
So it's an interactive video where you can go and look for things in the city. It's not just coming at you with advertising.
Yes. You can quiet the advertising by touching the screen and looking at things.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to weigh in with one more thing. Is that the kiosk doesn't really seem to showcase an artwork in the best way. So it's not generating income. It's maybe not giving the kind of artistic experience that we're hoping for somebody who's in the city for culture. How much discussion is there about, is it just this opportunity exists, or is this something that everybody thinks is good to grab onto and develop?
I think anytime that there's an opportunity to have art in any kind of aspect related to development or advertising or public space, we're looking to have some of that time allocated. So I think we're looking to see, is there a way to best showcase? Is there, if it's not always appropriate for certain kinds of media or formats, maybe there's a specific kind of format that we want to pilot, or there's a specific kind of genre or a different way of thinking about it. But I think that if we really are of the art everywhere in the city of Santa Monica, then taking advantage of these moments where there is already city time allocated feels like a real opportunity.
I
The
have
money,
a
I'm
question
sorry.
in that. I'm sorry.
But without the money to support something that would be curated or commissioned, how would that actually arrive?
I could imagine that we might soft open with our own collection and then look at a budget that would include curators or an open call for outside things. But we first would want some guidelines as to, are there content guidelines for this particular venue? Are there frequency guidelines? Can somebody apply more than once? That sort of thing.
I think weighing all the considerations, I think the best way to go forward, I mean, in my opinion, is to utilize this time and space for showing the city's art collection, because that's the only collection that is not really out there for the public to see or even know where it is. So if it can generate that much of interest, even if it's little, for them to be able to go and have a look at the collection online or on site or whatever, So at least it'll be a good way to introduce the collection to the city.
Another question. So it's essentially like a outdoor video screen webpage where you can come up and touch screen and go through these different pages and look for printmaking, and
Correct.
you can also browse the city's art collection. And when you're not doing that, there's ads coming at you. How do they?
Yeah.
How
The
does that
default
work?
is ads.
The default
So if
is
you're
ads.
walking towards it, it's showing
The
ads.
ads are coming. What
Yeah.
size are these screens?
They're 7-8 feet tall. They're big.
Oh, really? And
Yeah.
you're
You
okay.
can look right there on the corner of the street.
Okay, and you go up and touch them, and they stop, and they go, hey, check it out.
Yeah.
And as long as you're there going through, it's going to feed you information.
Yeah, I
When
think
you walk
the
away.
ads shrink to a portion of it while you're looking at the rest of it. It's like a website in some ways.
I thought we were trying to get rid of screens. Oh.
I have one other, I guess, question, comment, I don't know. At this time, besides the ads, are we, or is the city showing the types of art that are going on in the city on those screens?
So right now, the default is only if somebody has put like their exhibition up on Santa Monica Travel and Tourism in their calendar.
Okay.
It's showing up in the calendar function, but there's no
But
other.
it's not like a
there aren't
flash
any-
of, let's say, a live performance at the Annenberg or
Right.
whatever. I'm throwing things out that don't
Right.
exist.
We're
Or
not
the
getting
Montana Art Walk.
ad tiles for those items.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that would be, I think that would be probably a
Potentially.
cool way to show it, because the city is full of stuff, seriously, every time you turn around, but nobody's aware. And looking at the calendar, unfortunately, it's not the most engaging, is the way to put it.
The problem we've faced when we have a very limited amount of space is how to curate that and how to say
How to
your
choose.
event is
So that's what you're
on
looking for, guidelines?
and your event is not. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think, is there anything else before we move on to the member discussion items? Yes?
Uh-huh.
Is there a public, are we doing the public hearing? Is there someone who would like to say something?
I think we can take public comment on non-agenda items, but not about this discussion once it's in deliberation. by
This
the
is not
committee.
about this.
Okay.
I think that we closed this, right? I mean, if there's someone who wants to speak up about something else,
Before we close this, are there
Yeah.
any recommendations from this committee for staff for next steps that you would like to have us investigate or look into as we move the idea of a policy or guidelines forward? Or do you want this to be a continued item for
yeah, it
the
has to be a
next committee?
continued item. Because Frederico is not here, and we need to really explore this because most of us don't really have a full understanding of what it is. So we need to really study it a bit and have it discussed in the next meeting. Is that okay?
Please take a
Yeah.
look at the info item and gather your questions. And David Kaplan had another question? No.
Right. So, so can we move on to the committee members' discussion items?
Or should we just
Is
have
there a number 6
motion?
on public hearing, or what is it, the next one?
The gentleman.
He could have 2 minutes if it's on agenda.
Sir, did you have your hand raised earlier? Okay, did you want to make a public comment? Yes. Okay, if you'd like to, you can come over to this microphone at the corner, and then we'll give you 2 minutes to speak. And then just go ahead and state your name.
Hello there. You're being heard. Yes, my name's Harvey Eder. I'm a longtime resident, West Side, went to Venice High, and et cetera. My family's been here more than 100 years. Okay, I got a brother that's a 2-time Fulbright scholar and the piano man out of Cal Arts. And my nephew teaches music at the college here and got his doctorate recently. But we go back, he's named after Marley, Bob Marley, all right? So we have these Thursday night, the performances, they want to get money in and stuff. There's a whole history of that. Ry Cooder, I'm a real Ry Cooder nut. He's Americana, he's from this area, and he played about 15 years ago. We had Wu-Tang, different folks. So that's the performing arts, live arts, I think it's something that should be emphasized. It works. There's resources in it. It stimulates. We're the only beach here for Kansas. All right. So I want to throw that out there. Live music, dancing, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess Santa Monica needs a lot more of that, I'm sure. Yeah, thank you, sir, for your inputs. That was great.
Thank you, sir. And then if you can please fill out your name on that little piece of paper, and then you can just leave it there, and we'll go and pick it up. Thank you.
All right. Shall we move on to the Public Art Committee member discussion items? Anybody has anything to say? Well, if not, I guess we can move on to. There isn't much to discuss, so I think. Is that all? Is there anything else?
Any field trips you'd like to?
Public
I know
items.
Desert X is going on through May 11th, so Refractions closes May 11th and Desert X closes that same day. Our next meeting is May 19th for your calendars. And it sounds like we're going to continue this digital kiosk
Yeah,
discussion.
That's the next meeting, yes. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I guess so. I think we pretty much finished the meeting in 35 minutes. So
Can I-
I guess
can I
unless
make-
anyone has to say anything, we can.
Can I make
Yeah.
a quick announcement?
Yeah, sure, certainly.
So on May 3rd, 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks, we're having a gathering at Kutavungna, the Tongva Sacred Springs. They're on Barrington. And we're going to have garden tours, we're going to have art, We have live music. Daniel Ho is going to perform, some Hawaiians. We're going to have folkloric students from Uni High. Chief Anthony Morales, the Tonga dancers will be there. Workshops, vendors, and they also are, I think they're scheduling filming on the campus, you know.
Hi, everybody. Oh, I love this. Hi. Welcome, everyone, back to the April 2025 Public Art Committee meeting. It's great to see all of you here again. Naomi, thank you so much for chairing the previous Art Commission PAC meeting. Apologies for the inconvenience, but yes, a lot of things are happening, as I can see, with the whole buzz about the airport.
Yes, let's get our roster, our call.
Start with the roll call. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I got it. Okay, Deepa Subramanian,
I'm here.
Federico Galavis, absent. Bob Ramirez, Bob Ramirez is here.
Didn't turn your microphone.
Anna Bogosian. Here. Julia Carnahan. Here. David Kaplan.
Here.
Amazing. Before we get started, this meeting is going to be recorded. So if you do want your voice to be, actually, we ask that you please use the microphone. If you don't use the microphone, your voice will not be picked up on the recording. You just tap the little pad in the middle of the microphone. It'll light up blue, and then you tap it again, it'll turn off, and that means that you're no longer on the mic. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Deepa.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's just another small introduction before we actually get on. There's a little bit of a reshuffling of the agenda. But yes, welcome all of you. And all I have to say is there's lots going on.
Okay, Mary Elizabeth Michaels, Lori Yahia, here. Stacy Griesbach, Michael Masucci,
I'm here.
Federico Galavis, absent.
It's on honeymoon.
Michelle Edgar, here. Deepa Subramanian, here. Bob Ramirez, here. Susan Jane. Here. Okay, and then just a note, if you could use your microphone, that'd be great. If you don't want to, that is also fine. And I will turn it over to Mary Elizabeth.
Great. So first, welcome to our colleagues from the Airport Commission. We're happy to have you, especially for the next session.
You're not going to use this.
Are you here to you also taking this already? Yeah. Okay. And I know we've got some public for the second part of the afternoon of the evening with the airport discussion. So we will skip you until then. Chair update, I'm going to be super brief because we have a very short period of time. So we sent out a doodle poll regarding timing for August, and we have a couple of dates that I'll be reaching out. I understand people are busy in August. It's the only time we can do it since we had to cancel in January, and there's not been a single other weekend that I've been correct with. So we're going to get to August, but I haven't heard back from everybody yet. So and some people have not yet sure about their August yet, which is also totally understandable. So I'm going to stick with that. One of the things we were planning on doing in the January retreat was having a conversation about and transitioning the communications committee into an advocacy committee as part of our conversation at the retreat. So about talking about more advocacy work, which we also talked about in our previous meetings. So we are going to be doing that, and I'll be reaching out to individual commissioners about interest in that committee. And I'm going to move, well, I need to vote to move the consent calendar up first, right? Yes, so if I can have a motion to move the consent calendar and approval of minutes up to right now before we have the staff update, so make sure we get it done before we go on to the second part of the meeting.
Can I make a motion for exactly that, what you just said? Yes.
Awesome. Do I have a second? Susan, fantastic. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great, okay.
We just approved the minutes, right?
Yes, so now we are.
I'm sorry. So it was Bob, Susan.
Bob,
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank you.
Yes.
that was to move
Now
it
let's move
up.
it, now we're gonna do it. Yes. So, hopefully everybody had a chance to review the minutes. Jade, I said you said like an hour and a half ago, I don't know if you saw it, but basically 2 or 3 words. You can get it and I'll find the next one. So hopefully I had a chance to review them. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the
Fantastic.
minutes.
That's Lori, can you give a second? Rob seconds. Do all in favor of, well, do we have any conversation or discussion first? Fantastic. Then we have a vote to approve the minutes from last meeting. Everybody who was here. Great. We unanimously, okay, now we're gonna go back up to, under our special agenda items, staff update, and I'll turn it over to Maria.
Thank you. The big things that I'm going to talk about are the upcoming city council agenda. The big thing for tomorrow night is that we have 3 different special agenda items. There are 3 proclamations. The middle one is for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We have new artwork that's being created. We've commissioned as part of that. The artist is May Sun. You'll see these. You can take actually some of these proclamations from the front. May Sun works in sculpture, photography, painting, installation, and public art. Will be here tomorrow night to do the presentation. We also will have a presentation by one of my colleagues for National Water Safety Month. The final item that might be of interest to this body is item 10. While it's not directly related, it's about the ordinance for a 3rd Street Promenade Entertainment Zone pilot program. This essentially allows for open alcohol on the promenade to increase activity and bring in more people purchasing from local vendors and businesses. It also, once you have that kind of activity walking around in the promenade, a great opportunity for more arts, performances, and engagement. So I think while the ordinance is focused on the open alcohol, there is a model in San Francisco that this is based on. It's been part of a conversation at the council for a number of months. Tomorrow will be the ordinance discussion. I do think the implications for us, for the Arts Commission, also could be impactful in terms of the activation of the space and possible funding that could emerge. But that's just, I think that's an ancillary, that's more tangential. There's one other thing about in the 16 items by the council members around maintaining the zoning laws as they exist right now. Nothing will change. I think that could impact when we look at the development for artist housing at Bergamot. That again is very tangential. I don't think that that's a direct right now. I think the interest is just to have a hold on any changes that would emerge for new developments. So of interest to you, I think that the really only other thing is that we have an artist coming tomorrow, and they did the proclamation. Are there any questions on the council agenda for tomorrow? You're welcome. And then I think facilities updates, the big thing that I wanted to share is that we have the Miles Playhouse. We have been doing a soft rollout over the last few months, 6 months of programming to understand what it is to reopen a space that has been closed for so long. The elevator continues to break. We are still trying to get that fixed. We have had Godspell from St. Monica's. It was a huge success in many ways of understanding how to do a musical inside that space with young people, because that is the most difficult way to do building impact of having young people doing a musical. And we all survived. We are going to be reopening as a big launch event for the State of the City on July 17th at Reed Park for the opening of the Miles Playhouse to the public in a more general way. The mayor will be there to do an open house. And then we're going to do that Saturday, a larger activation of Reed Park with a lot of performances, arts, music, crafts. There will be at the State of the City a number of vendors as well. So we're going to kind of do it as a big open house weekend, that weekend of July 17th. We have a grant from Supervisor Horvath to activate Reed Park for a number of months. We're working with Recreation and a number of our other city partners on what that programming will look like. And that will be in July, August, September, October, throughout the summer and into fall, different arts and recreation activities. We're also looking at camera obscura. I think I just wanted to bring up to date that we found mold in the building. And while we were trying to reopen this as a rental, we now have to close it back again while we do more remediation and figure out what the next steps will be. We're still looking to see how we can continue to use that space, but it is a problem. It's holding moisture in a way that it's an older building. So we're looking into that. And I think for the Civic, I think the only thing that I can say is that it went into the process. Susan, you may have more to speak to, but I think that the good news is there is interest now to move forward with what it would look like to program and rehabilitate that space. And I can't remember it just slipped my mind. RPG. So very good news. That's all related to performing arts use.
One question, you said the date for the Balconies was July 17th?
That's a Thursday night.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're programming it from 4 to 7 because sunset's at 8, and we don't want to have to put up lights in the park. More lights. There will be lights. Yeah.
Okay, so Jane, you were gonna time us for 5 minutes each. Sorry to do this tonight. Apologies for running committees, but for time purposes, we're doing updates in 5 minutes, and Jane's gonna time us. So Deepa, turn it over for a while for 5 minutes.
It's going to be less than 5 minutes for sure. Okay. But yeah, so we had a lean agenda. We had to, of course, move item 10 to number 1. We had 2 members who had comments on public comments. The first was Mike Masucci, who gave a presentation on the top 9 public art project at the Airport Park project that's proposed. So it is a brief presentation, but it's just it's an absolutely great idea. John Nye is a fantastic artist, and we all love to see his work in the public domain. The other, it's all at a very nascent stage at the moment, and we're not very clear as to how to be able to take this to the next level. I guess that's where we are right now. And there was a little bit of a confusion about the letter of interest and the letter of intent. So it's very clearly at the stage of the letter of interest at this point in time, which is why it was brought to the Public Art Committee for a basic, introduction or say presentation. At this point in time, there was another gentleman who had a presentation of works by artists which represent the history of Santa Monica. I guess we have to have another look at it before we, take it any further. So these were the 2 items which were moved on before we started. Other than that, there was a discussion with Federico Dallas, who's not present here at the moment, about digital kiosks, where he showed it, proposed to have works of art in the limited time that was allocated by the city at the digital space, which was between the ad time. We're pretty much not very clear at this point in time, but yes, we're going to have a look at it. We had a discussion, which is now a continued item, which will be discussed again in the next meeting. Federico was not present here, so if he's here, we'll probably a little more clarity on what he wants, what he proposes, and so on. So, having said that, yes, I guess that's pretty much it for the public arts.
I have a question. Quick question. I don't know if there's an I don't know if there's an answer, but I'm just wondering whether we have any idea from the city of how much time Cultural Affairs has on those digital platforms.
Do you want me to answer this? So it's 10% of the hour, so 6 minutes per hour. They, I believe that the slides are each 15 seconds each for the slides. They're still images. It's not moving picture. And we were asking the committee to consider policies and guidelines around the percentage of that 6 minutes that could be used for arts, maybe the time inside that would be top of the hour. What is the kind of artwork that could be considered? Do we want to look at the art bank as a source? Do we want to have a curator come in and create a whole new system? Do we want to have events that are being done by local artists, also have some sort of feature? What would the participation and inclusion look like? Yes. So we were hoping that the Public Art Committee would create a recommendation that would then go to the full commission for review and discussion. I believe the interesting part about this isn't just that we have the 25 kiosks around the city, but also the future implications for any other kind of digital displays that show up around Santa Monica as our signage policies may be shifting.
And will the Media Arts Committee be weighing in on this? Because that's their area of expertise.
I think that's a great idea. The good news is that Federico sits on both. And so I think that we will have that interest, but I think it should be agendized in both.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Great. Okay, Michael, we'll start with Bergamot.
So at the last meeting, we started by encouraging the members of the subcommittee to attend and support Michelle Edgar's April 15th event that she did at KCRW. I'm happy to say that I think all but one of the committee members attended. We went back in time and reiterated a policy that's been in place since the inception of the committee almost 10 years ago, which is to have one or more members of the management team attend and participate in the meetings. This reminder was unanimously approved, and we strongly urge Rising to attend. Committee member Mike Myers, former chair of this commission and former chair of the Berg Ad Hoc Committee, confirmed that it had been the policy since the inception for the Worth Group to attend, and they attended every meeting during their tenure. Red Cat, which began attending, and then as they fell off the cliff, stopped attending. And we strongly urge Rising to come to the table and participate so that there's a one-on-one communication. Sophia had a great recommendation that we should also invite a representative from Economic Development, and obviously nobody objected to that. On a motion from Craig Cole, who, as you may know, is the Bergamot representative on the committee, it was unanimously approved to suggest to Economic Development that they give Berman Gallery their existing legacy rate with their move that has been approved to Rose Gallery, and to honor the 31-year existing policy that they not charge for the outdoor space, which is quite small, very claustrophobic, and basically nobody ever uses it. The last follow-up was that Economic Development came back with what I assume they believe is a compromise, that they would not charge for 1 year, have the option to charge the remaining years, but to deny the legacy rate. So that's still up in the air. The official reason, according to Economic Development, was that City Council had never approved the recommendation of the Arts Commission to honor legacy rates. However, I would suggest it be reminded that a year ago, last February, the City Council unanimously approved a motion to find ways to support the economic vitality at Bergamot. So I think there is probably a need for more conversation, especially on the heels of Writers Boot Camp leaving because of basically the same issue. On another motion by Craig, also unanimously approved, a request to quickly complete the issuance of leases to the tenants, which are now almost 5 months overdue. As of checking in with Craig on Saturday, most still don't have simple leases. So a discussion leading hopefully to build better communication and transparency between all of the allied constituencies, and we are all on the same team. So the Arts Commission, the Berg Ad Hoc Committee, Economic Development, Cultural Affairs be sought and developed. It was pointed out that the ad hoc visits and revisits this issue at almost every meeting. Sophia reiterated what was discussed at a recent Arts Commission meeting, that in order for the committee to return to monthly meetings, it had to either be task-oriented, come up with a task, or become a standing committee. I suggested we postpone that decision until Michelle takes the realm in July, and that be something that she, with the committee members, decide rather than me terming out. So Craig, by the way, is he's stepping down. He has been the first
30
bona fide
seconds.
chair, and will step down. He's recommending Rose Shoshone take his place. And Tom Irwin from Gallery 12 is replacing Jeff Gordon as the head of the Bergman Standard Association.
Thank you. And now I can get to the technology for media arts to pitch it for Federico. You don't want to, I don't know if you'll bet if he is enough.
Yeah, so first, Federico, Commissioner Galavis is on his honeymoon, so I suggest a round of applause to Fed. Hope Fred's having a great time. The Media Arts Committee has met twice since this last meeting in person, and discussed a number of different things dealing with the future of DNA. The idea is for DNA to be a one-month event in the fall. Federico has been soliciting various spaces to serve as venues, and imagining some fundraising opportunities for that. As far as the last DNA, Santa Monica College is publishing a book/catalog for DNA. It will largely focus on the Barrett Gallery show, but will include all of the Santa Monica College events and mentions of all of the other 17 odd events that took place. I know Federico is looking to converse with public art and cultural affairs about some collaboration vis-a-vis the billboards. I'm not part of that discussion. I know that's something he's very, very interested in, and will largely be shepherding when I'm out as commission. But he is the chair, and he's been pretty much steering the ship and doing a damn good job. And I hope he has a great honeymoon.
Thank you. All of us do as well. That's it. Okay, and with that, I can have everybody do what you need. You don't need my motion. Okay, so with that, I close the first portion of our meeting, and we'll have a 5-minute break and reconvene at 7 o'clock when we have the joint meeting with sustainability to have a conversation about the airport and the
We're going to get started. Thank you so much to all of the commissioners that are willing to do this joint meeting. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your grace and your understanding as we try to figure this out. My name is Clove Galilee. I'm the PSA for and the liaison for Office of Sustainability and the Environment. Can't remember that. And I just have only one announcement, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mary Elizabeth Michaels for a moment. My announcement is, please today speak into the mic. We are taping this, and we need you to do that. So if you don't have the mic near you and you have a question, please pull it to you, press it once, you'll see little blue dots, and then you can speak right into it like I am, okay? If it seems like we can't hear you, Jordan is over there, he's taping, I will ask you to repeat yourself. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Elizabeth Michaels. I'm chair of the Arts Commission and like to welcome everybody here. And for the remainder of the meeting, I'm going to turn over the chairmanship to Alex Towers to help lead us through the rest of tonight.
Thank you, Mary Elizabeth. Hi, everyone. What we're going to do first is a quick introduction of just commissioners. We'll think it will take too long to do the whole public, so we'll just do a roll call of the commissioners. If we could start with, and we're doing both commissions, right? Okay, so maybe we should start with Mary Elizabeth and work around the table. Thank you.
Again, Mary Elizabeth Michaels, Chair of the Arts Commission.
Michael Masucci, Arts Commission.
Michelle Edgar, Arts Commission.
Ashley Olson, Commission on Sustainability, Environmental Justice, and the Environment.
Olivia Walker, Commission on Sustainability, Environmental Justice, and the Environment.
Lori Yea, Arts Commission.
Deepa Subramanian, Chair, Public Arts Committee.
Susan Mearns, member of the Commission on Sustainability, Environmental Justice, and the Environment.
That's such a long name. I'm Alex Tower, Vice Chair of that.
Susan Jane, Vice Chair, Arts Commission.
Stacy Griesbach, Arts Commission.
Bob Ramirez, Arts Commissioner.
Rob Lempert, member of the commission with a long name.
Shannon Perry, Chief Sustainability Officer.
Clove Galilee, Office of Sustainability and the Environment.
Jade Rodriguez, Arts Commission, Cultural Affairs Staff Assistant.
Sophia Klatzker, Arts Commission staff.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So we are not taking public input from non-agenda items at this time. So if we could move on to input from the public on the special agenda items, and that is namely the Santa Monica Airport conversion project update. Do we have anybody in the public? Oh, I think we do. Jerry. I'm the only one. Yeah, come on up. But Jerry, you must speak into the mic.
First of all, happy 55th anniversary of Earth Day tomorrow. But as everybody knows, Earth Day is every day, so happy Earth Day. My name is Jerry Rubin. I'm a member of the Santa Monica Urban Forest Task Force, but I'm just speaking for myself. There's a lot of Earth Day activities and Arbor Day activities. You could plug into it in the city's website. I'm here to speak about the need for a great park. And we're all friends of Mother Nature. We're all creative people. The ballot initiative a number of years ago said when the airport closes, we should have recreational activities, artistic activities, and that's what the community voted on. I'm a big housing supporter, but I don't think it's fair to what the community voted on or fair to Mother Nature herself that we go ahead and add housing to what is truly needed, even in a more dedicated way. We are so short of park area and things that could help people, community gardens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that I hope all of you artists and all of you environmentalists will do everything you can to support this great park endeavor that we need in Santa Monica desperately when the airport closes, and we don't need to divide our energies. We need to keep growing in a beautiful way as the coalition is doing. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And now we'll hand it over to Amber. Oh, okay. Can you please come up to a mic? Thank you. Harvey, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you please press the button until the blue light comes on?
I thought it was on.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Good evening. My name's Harvey Etter. I'm speaking for myself and for Public Solar Power Coalition. We helped get Solar Santa Monica started and get y'all involved in the Clean Power Alliance, the third largest electric system in the country, in the state. Anyway, so 55 years ago, we got a living Christmas tree in the White House working with Dick Cooley, head of the First Environmental Studies program at UC after being at Berkeley. And information on that's been purged. We're trying to go to the trillion trees out of Davos and whatnot. Been asked to put in a proposal with South Coast. Anyway, out there, solar, we got potential now. So look and go on to the buildings on the side. It could all be a park, and you could have distribution systems going, heating and cooling, and thermal, electric, and hybrids with PVs. So this should be looked, if you're going to put in some housing in a corner or this and that, it could be worked out, and it could set up user co-ops and this type of thing, and try to structure with the Clean Power Alliance in the city and whatnot. So I just wanted to put that out there as an option. To look at and to be open-minded to this. There's been a lot that hasn't been done with solar thermal. There's an international energy agency working on it for 40 years and stuff going on. So thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Is there anyone else? Okay, now I will hand it over to Amber. Thank you so much for coming. Take it away.
Perfect. Thank you. Let me start this up. Hopefully that works. Okay, love it when technology works. First and foremost, thank you all. I know having a joint commission meeting is a little tricky and it was a little extra work and people had to shift some schedules around. So we really appreciate you meeting together since you meet on tonight. We are also headed over to Virginia Avenue Park Advisory Board tonight. So we really appreciate you guys doing this meeting together for this very important project, as we've heard from the community today. What we wanted to go through was where the project is, where it's going, and what was this new survey and virtual education session that we just sent out to you. Hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at it. We are in phase 3A, right? So we came before you in phase 1 and phase 2. We went to council at the end of January and got direction to go into phase 3. Phase 3A is about the 3 test fits. Phase 3B is about a preferred scenario, and then 4 and 5 are really figuring out the incrementality of it and finalizing and then codifying all of the work of the plan. What we realized pretty quickly was when we started taking all of the feedback that we've gotten, and we've had a great response from the community on taking the surveys, and we know that they have been long, and watching the virtual education sessions, because this is a really big site and it's a really big question, right? So we want to get as much information out as possible about what could go on here and what we're hearing from the community. So we're really focusing that community engagement. And one thing that came up was that we really needed to break down the different ways of thinking about a master plan. And that's where you come into these site design layers. So we're gonna go through them tonight so that you get a little bit, this will be the short version of the virtual education session. Please watch it. It is very detailed, but it has a lot of information in it. As I mentioned, in December, council gave us direction to move forward. Based on all of the feedback from phase 1 and phase 2. We are now in April. This is where we are. So we just launched the site design layers. April 8th, I believe is the date that it went live. It is open until April 27th. So that's next Sunday. This Sunday. And then we're going to take all of that information, generate the 3 test fit scenarios from there, and then that's where we'll have a big community event, and that will be the 17th. It will be out, so save the date. It will be at the airport. We are still figuring out all of the logistics and things, but save that date. It will be out at the airport. We are trying to get bus tours so that people can actually go inside the fence in a bus. You can't get out and walk, but there are still active planes. And then provide input on those 3 test fit scenarios and hear kind of the background information. And so that's what May brings. And then We'll have 3 test fit scenarios and another way of interacting with the project online in June, and then we're expecting to go to council in July. Again, we're not asking folks to say, I like scenario A, B, or C, but it's really about the parts and pieces or the site design layers, right, the systems, because we will create a whole new scenario for that preferred scenario based on all of the feedback that we're getting and council direction. So a little bit about site design layers. What is it, right? Master plans are complex. There's a lot that goes into them, and so we're trying to break that down for the community so we can get feedback on those site design layers. They are based on the community input to date from phase 1 and 2. They're based on the guiding principles, right? That's what council adopted or approved in January. So we use those very carefully as well, and then city council direction. So the 6 layers that we are asking folks to provide feedback on, there are 6 of them: connectivity and mobility, water and topography, ecology and passive uses, active park uses, housing, and revenue generation. So for each of these 6 layers, there are 4 options. So on purpose, there are not 3 of them, right? We're not saying any one of these makes up any given scenario. What we really want to know is more like this or more like that, right? The least intense is always going to be the A's, and the most intense for any of those given layers is always going to be the D's. And then there's 2 versions in between. And we'll go through each of the site layers so you can kind of see what types of things we're talking about. It's a little bit easier. I know housing has been a very big topic of discussion. This was based on council direction, right? They said to go forward with an option, or they wanted us to come back with a scenario that did not require a vote under Measure LC. So that's on one end. And then one option that has some housing. What we also realize, though, is housing really has not been a part of the conversation. And so that may mean a lot of different things to different people. And some things may be okay, and some things may be too far. And so we're really trying to figure that out as well, because we've had a lot of conversation about those active uses, those passive uses. How do we bring biodiversity back? How do we manage our water better, right? The site is 80% impervious. There's going to be a lot of really great things that we can do there. We also want to make sure that our arts community that is there continues to thrive, and that we deepen those opportunities for our artists and being able to keep them in Santa Monica in spaces that support their work. And so balancing all of those things, housing does have its own layer, and we'll go through that as well. So the first layer, connectivity and mobility. I am not going to read all of the slides. These are all in depth in the virtual education session, which you can go to the website and go in the resources tab, or just go to YouTube and Google the project name, and they'll show up in both places. So you'll see for each one of the layers, we always tie it back to the guiding principles. Again, I'm not going to read this to you. Then we also bring it back to the site inventory or the site opportunities and constraints. Again, these are PDFs that are on the website under the resources tab that go really in depth. There are about 114 pages of analysis of the site on there. So if you really want to geek out, please go there. So the parts of those documents that are relevant for each of the layers, we've pulled those forward to kind of highlight what we've been seeing. So again, connectivity and mobility, you can see in option A, right, there are no additional connections across the site, whereas in D, there are a lot of connections across the site. So again, asking, how do you rank these? So we don't ask what is your favorite one, we're saying, what do you like first, second, third, and fourth? And the way that we're asking the questions is on each layer, we ask you a couple different things. So for the connectivity and mobility layer, we're asking, what type of pedestrian experience do you like? And rank them, A, B, C, D. How many different gateways or access points to the site do you want? A few or a lot? And in between. And then vehicular connectivity across the site. Do we want to introduce any? Do we want to have a lot? Do we want to have some? What is some? So those are the types of questions that we're asking. And then, so when you go to the survey, you can respond on each one of these. And then there's also a space for comments. So you can tell us about each of these 4 in every single layer if you have thoughts and feelings about it. If you have no thoughts and feelings, you can move on, right? So it's really dependent on how these layers feel to you. But we wanted to give a lot of opportunity for people to provide their feedback. The next layer is water and topography. Again, tying it back to the guiding principles. We did a lot of analysis, you'll see, on hydrology as well as the site, right? The site does seem very flat, and it is. It's a runway, but it's also really long. So a 2% slope over the whole thing is about a 60-foot difference from one end to the other. And then we have about a 30-foot difference on that west end, right? If you've ever driven down 23rd, there's a big hill. And on that upper end, there's a big difference between the airport site and the Bundy and Centinela corner. And so there's actually a lot of topographic change on site. So there's a lot of different ways to deal with that, right? So water, there was a lot of conversation about water and how do we use it? How do we keep it? How do we make it infrastructure? Do we make it experiential? What does this mean to the community? And so option A is that there's really not a lot of visible water. It's really all underground. And then on D, you see a very big reservoir, right? And when you start to dig out big things, then you can do big topography things, right? So those things kind of go together. And as you look at the 4, again, from underground water to big water, meandering water, is it structured water but still has an expression at the pedestrian level? And then what are we doing with topography? Do we want just what's there and existing, or do we want some big topographic changes, which will get you different viewpoints, will have different moments of awe and inspiration, different levels of accessibility, and then that experience of water on site from a little to a lot, right? So those are the types of things that we're talking about with site design layers. There's another one on ecology and passive uses. This was something from the surveys in phase 2 that we heard a lot from, that were based on what we heard in phase 1. Again, tying them to the guiding principles. As I mentioned, the site does not have much impervious nature, right, at all. They actively do not want birds there, right? Birds and planes are bad. they don't go well together. So there's not a whole lot of biodiversity on site. And there's not, there's a couple coyotes running around, but they shoo them off as well because planes and coyotes don't get along either. As I mentioned, right, there's only about 20% of pervious space right now, and that 80% impervious. There's a big opportunity to rewild, to get the biodiversity, to become that stopover for our migration birds and patterns and things like that. Provide those passive moments of reflection and inspiration and wonder and those sorts of things. And so that's really what this layer is talking about. We also talk about, we had a top 50 uses from the phase 1 and phase 2 surveys. And so we're trying to tie it back to those uses. So if you took those surveys then, you'll start to see the same language being pulled through. So for these, again, A being the least, right? There's some, but we're really keeping it kind of minor or less intense, and D is being a lot of it. And so you see the same types of things across all 4 of these, but they're in different amounts, they're in different shapes, they're organized in different ways. And so it's trying to get the community to think about what are the parts and pieces that you want to see in this space, this project. And then how is it organized and how does it relate to other uses, right? Passive and ecology is one set of uses. The next ones are going to be the active park uses. So for active, same thing, tying it back to guiding principles. We did a lot of work with the Santa Monica open space and amenities. Our senior park planner is part of the team, and so we're working very closely with, well, what is already in the park network of Santa Monica? What do we have? What do we not have? What do we need more of? And what does that kind of needs assessment look like? So we've grouped, again, those top 50 uses into court sports, field sports, structured recreation, garden uses, lawn activities, arts and culture, and youth focused. So you can, and this is how that kind of sorts out based on those top 50 uses. Arts and culture can mean a lot of different things. This is just coming from that survey. So we hope to hear a lot from folks. Again, A is sort of the smallest or least intense, and D is the most. Again, you'll start to see if someone's like, I want all of the ecology, and I want all of the active uses, and I want all of the water, and I want all of the everything. It's not all going to fit, right? So think about what is the biggest priority to you as you're going through this survey, right? That is also intentional, as we want people to start thinking between the layers, what is the most meaningful to you? Where do you really want to say this is, and hold it up? And that's our job then, is to take that information and create those 3 scenarios to reflect what we hear. So again, sort of least intense to most intense. Is it a meandering path? Is it structured around something? Is it a progression? Is it all in the center? And we want all of it as the nexus. And then how does it interact with different uses? The housing layer, again, showing it how it connects to guiding principles. Being that council said a no vote option, option A has no housing on it. Option D shows a decent amount of housing. And what we're trying to get to is sort of, this is the introduction to the conversation. Are we talking about one area? Are we talking about a couple areas? Are we talking about a lot of areas? What does this mean to the community? Also, we start talking about, do we want it on less land and taller? We're not talking about unit counts yet. We're not talking about types of housing yet, right? We're really trying to get that introduction of what does housing mean. In the survey, we do talk a little bit about the types of housing that are needs, from our needs assessment in the housing element. I think that's Appendix B. One of them is sort of an artist's priority. So note that in there. And that, again, is in the survey. We also start to talk about, well, what does housing do for the site, right? There's some types of housing will generate money, right? Which means that you might have, or we would be able to rely on revenue that's generated on site. But that may not be what folks want to do, right? If we don't do that, then we're relying more on external funding, right? We're looking at state funding and, normally we would say federal, but probably not now. But that sort of nexus between those things. And so again, these are all separate questions that you can respond to and rank your answers. Then the last layer is revenue generation. From the very beginning of this project, self-sufficiency was important. And as I'm guessing we've all heard from a variety of sources, right, the city's finances are in a very different position than we were before COVID. And the fires have impacted us, right? There have been a lot of big things that we've had to deal with over the last 5 years and before. And so revenue generation, again, is how do we pay for things? Do we want things to take longer? Do we want them to happen in quicker? It's also, Guiding Principle 3 of Balance Economics, right? So this is something that we've pulled through from the beginning, was reaffirmed by council that we want to do this. It does not mean that it has to be a big, huge developer comes in and does a thing. Hopefully you've also all seen the letter of interest that we've put out. That's a way of trying to understand how recreation can pay for itself and maybe generate some income. What are those great ideas out there? And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Revenue generating, we're also looking at what are those structures on site, right? And you'll see the adaptive reuse of buildings. Measure LC allows for, you can adaptively reuse the buildings up to a certain point with the uses that are there. So do we want to augment that? Do we want to lean into that, right? There's a certain amount of revenue that the airport already provides based on the non-aviation or aeronautical uses. And so keeping that money here is something we're advocating for and saying, if you're a business and you're there, you can stay, right? Because we want those revenues to be able to help pay for things. This layer also talks about, right, it's not just housing. That's why housing has its own layer. Housing may or may not be a part of revenue generation. Again, that depends on the mix in heavy consideration, but these were the things like restaurants, cafes, the family-friendly beer garden actually ranked really high, markets of different kind. I mean, I was like, that sounds great. But the amphitheater and daycare and youth center. So there were other things that may generate revenue that would help support the park that are other ways to think about this. So the way that we've broken it down is you'll see there's different amounts of recreation on the runway. There's areas for rewilding. There's leasable park area. Again, that's that LOI, right? If we want to, I know AYSO has sent some things. Oh, if you gave us, or if we built, we could get together and build 8 soccer fields and then lease it out for tournaments every weekend and not have to drive down to Irvine or to San Bernardino, which is my life with small children, those types of things. Or we've heard skate park or aquatic center or all, other types of recreation that are here but are a leasable type thing, or could be here. Then there's park program, adaptive reuse, which we talked about, and then revenue generating for that sort of complete neighborhood. And so I'll draw your attention to a couple things here, right? A is really, again, a no vote option, means we are reusing the runway. We are keeping all of those adaptive reuse buildings. And we're hoping that we can get at least one area of a fairly large leasable park program, and that will let us do some things like rewilding, and maybe we can fix up some of the buildings and things like that and try and balance revenues that way. All the way up to D, which has a lot of opportunity for revenue generation. You get a big, a big green space in the middle that's all free, or quote unquote, right? It's not a leasable park. I'll also draw your attention to the pie charts, right? You'll start to see in the first one, it's a lot of pink, some green and some gray, because that runway we can reuse for recreation, but it's not really green space necessarily. Like, you can ride your bike and you can do other things, and there's ways to program it. But as you move across A to B to C and to D, that pink area gets less and those revenue generating areas get larger, and you'll see more green and less gray, right? And so they're all pretty similar of park space between A to D, but there is a difference between reusing runway and actual fields or green space or other things. And so that's the, I grabbed the wrong slide. Yep, I grabbed the wrong slide. So I don't have the one with the icons. I will switch that out and then send it to you. But in the survey and on the virtual education session, you'll see all of those things that I just talked about in those icon or diagrams. So I apologize for that. I grabbed the wrong slide. You'll see this slide in the virtual education session. As I mentioned, right, the survey is open right now, and we provided the website. Hopefully you've all been there. It's right on the homepage of Take the 3A survey. And then the letters of interest, which is a way for the broader community to tell us all of those great ideas in a way that we can then bring to council, as well as look at those revenue generating ideas with our financial consultant to start to say, well, if we did things like this or we did things like that, do we want to consider any of these? Do we like all of them? Whatever, we'll see what comes our way. But this is meant not as a master developer to say, I'm going to come in and do the whole site. It's meant to be like, I would take this piece, or I would take this building and I would reuse it for an arts therapy center, or I would take this area over here and make it an event lawn and then have a cafe next to it that supports our disabled youth, or whatever the ideas are, all the way up through sports fields and venues and things like that. And so that's kind of the point of those LOIs. So again, on the website, you can click there. It'll send you to a website called OpenGov, which is our procurement site. It's free to sign up. It sounds a little scary. I promise it's not too bad. And the requirements for a letter of interest are very minimal. This is not an RFP. This is not an RFQ. Right? This is not a formal process. This is just, please send us your ideas. So you can submit one idea. You can submit a couple ideas. It's okay. And so I'll just plug those two things. So just to recap, April, which is what we're in. The survey is out. It closes on Sunday. Please encourage everyone to take it. We will then take that information and generate the 3 scenarios that we will debut at the community event. And then the 3 scenarios will be open for comment from about mid to late May to mid to late June, and then we will take all of that information and we won't be changing the scenarios from that, but we'll be taking all of the community engagement to council. We're anticipating July 8th to say, here's what we've done, here's how we went about it, here's what we heard from the community, here's our best analysis. Council, please tell us how to go forward into a preferred scenario. And that preferred scenario will occur in the fall of 25. We'll have more details on that later, and I'm sure you'll see us again. And we will actually be back before both commissions in June with the 3 scenarios. So it's not the last time you're seeing us. And we'll be back in the fall, I'm sure, as well. But really appreciate your time tonight and welcome your questions, should there be any. Yeah.
Thank you, Amber. Could we start with the commissioners, please? Anybody, any commissioner have a question?
I just had a thought. First of all, thank you. That was really well thought out and well organized. I would just, as an arts commissioner, one of the things that I try to think about is how can arts and culture be included in everything versus a standalone. I noticed on like layer 4, for instance, in the active park uses, we've got, lawn activities, structural represented or recreation, field sports, and arts and culture was kind of separate. And what I would counsel as we go forward in this process together as a community is that arts and culture can be at the foundation of anything we create. So whether that be the green space, whether that be the architecture that goes into an amphitheater, whether that be something that's a space that's actually the creation of the recreational racquetball courts or whatever it might be. Any one of those things can have an artistic component to it versus having it be kind of a standalone or thought of as a standalone. I think arts and culture kind of gets put to the side, yet I think it's a foundational element to everything. And if we think about and we kind of change the way we frame how we're going to go about doing this in making sure that everything has that artistic or cultural relevance, I think it might just change the tone of everything. So that was just a kind of a bigger thought that I had.
Great,
but I
thank
loved
you.
everything.
Great, thank you.
How will you approach tensions in survey results? Say, like, I noticed for the category connectivity and mobility, if you get one result with that, that might look really different depending on the result you get with revenue generation or with housing. So what's your thinking on reconciling it all together?
Great question, thank you. And that's where this maps to 3 different scenarios. And so if there's a ton of support for option C, right, in mobility. And again, it's why we're doing that ranked choice instead of what is my favorite, and that's the only answer, because that helps us then cross-pollinate to say, okay, we're seeing a group that says this, or we're seeing a group that says that, or, these were the highest ranked across all of the layers. And so that'll then inform what those 3 scenarios look like. And so you should start to see the parts and pieces. And as we bring forward those 3 scenarios, we'll be breaking it down back into the layers as well, so you can see how that mapped. And so that's sort of the designer's job, right, is to say we have all of this information. Where are we seeing those priorities? And then how are we graphically displaying those for additional feedback? Yeah.
Was that arts and culture is under active uses. And of course, public art can be active or passive. So, I hope that won't limit the possibility. I mean, ideally it's all interactive in some way. There's always some active interaction between the viewer and the work, and to different degrees is it interactive. But I just wanted to point out that I guess that overlaps a little bit with what Stacy was saying, that we want to keep in mind that arts and culture is really important, not only in the quote active uses, but in
all of them.
All of it. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And it's a good point, and it's one that I love that these commissions are together right now, because we also don't have a sustainability layer, right? It is the tenets of the project are
sustainability goals.
And this, we went back and forth on this a lot, but it's a good point, right? That arts and culture is foundational to Santa Monica. I mean, you are 2 very active commissions, and we really, just appreciate all of your work and working with us. And there's absolutely the thread that runs through. And I didn't mean to make it feel like it was like singled out to the side, but sustainability and arts and culture absolutely can weave through all of these and will be. But thank you for the comments. We will be sure to tweak that narrative.
And I love the idea of arts and culture and sustainability working together in terms of, creating opportunities for sustainable arts activities.
There you go.
This sort of a follow-on to Olivia's question, but So as you collect all this data, I can imagine there being like a central tendency and then kind of, some variation or like really distinct clusters. And so one is like, do you have a sense of where it's going? And then second, if you end up with really distinct clusters, which then are in your 3 scenarios, which then go to council, are they stuck picking one of the 3, or then do you mash it back together after they talk about it?
So, yeah, and that's a good question as well. So the 3 scenarios, right? Council's direction is one scenario that we bring to them has to be a no vote option, right? So we have to look at where are the clusters of things that get us a no vote option, right? And so there has to be one of those. And then there has to be an option that shows some housing, right? And so that's why a lot of this, you'll see us testing, what does some housing mean, right? That means very different things to very different people. And so when we bring the 3 test fits back to the community, we're not going to ask you, do you like A, B, or C best? We're going to ask you, how did we do on the connectivity layers across these 3? How did we do on the passive recreation across these 3 options? And then when we bring all of that to council, council will then get to say, okay, we agree with this one and this one. We want to see more of that. We really want to pick up this thing over here because we think it's important. Council can say whatever they want, but they will then direct us kind of what parts and pieces across all 3 do they want to see in a preferred scenario. So the preferred scenario will be a totally different scenario we anticipate. I mean, who knows? Maybe we knock it out of the park and everybody's happy with one of them. That'd be great, but probably not. Yeah, that'd be awesome. But yeah, so does that help?
Yeah, that does. Yeah.
Hi, Michelle. I have a question. I know we're in the early development stages of everything, but I think something that's really important is how we also communicate this and onboard our local businesses. We have such amazing major corporations in our backyard across all those sectors, from Angel City to Universal Music and all these, to ZipRecruiter and Snap. I think it would be really critical as we're thinking about revenue generation. Of course, I love the ideas of these different, options, but also communicating to those businesses, getting them engaged, because I'm sure there will be some support and contribution possibly if, they know about this and can be part to help shape or help make a few of those things that, might be more on the back burner because of the financial constraints.
Thank you. And it's a good point. We are working with our partnerships team, right? Because they have a lot of those connections, as well as our economic development team. So on the city side, right, it's not just the 5 of us that are here. There's a larger sort of liaison group where we are we are working with Shannon and her team. We are working with mobility. We're working with planning and mobility and Sophie and her group. So we are trying to pull sort of the best minds in the city who have some of these connections, as well as encourage community members. If you have connections, send them our way or send them the LOI and say, right, tell us what you think. That would be great.
If I can be helpful, I raise my hand to help on that end.
Great, thank you.
When and where do the costs enter into it? And I'm not talking about the financial costs to build, but the costs associated with connectivity and mobility. The more automobile traffic that you have, the more emissions you're going to have, which was one of the primary reasons why people around the airport wanted to have the airport closed, because they were concerned about emissions. Yeah. So I don't understand where the cost center, and I would think it would be an important part of the decision-making process, so that as you are evaluating which of these different layers you prefer, maybe it has less of a preference when you start thinking about emissions from automobile traffic or bus traffic or whatever it might be.
Yeah, good question. In that is absolutely critical, and it's part of the very first guiding principle of Start with Nature. The words that were added by council were about consequential carbon specifically, and so it's a little hard to do a carbon analysis on 4 different versions of something, right? So we're trying to get to what are we drawing first, but as we bring those 3 scenarios through, there's gonna be a lot more analysis on traffic patterns and impacts potential, as well as what does this mean? Like, how much water are we actually saving in any one of those schemes? How much carbon are we emitting? What is that nexus between I live and work here and I can walk to things, or we're having big events and people have to drive in, right? So there's pluses and minuses across a whole bunch of considerations. Oh goodness, considerations, and it's why, right, master planning is very difficult, and there's a lot of things to consider. We were trying to keep it to 6 that sounded manageable, but as we bring those 3 scenarios forward, it will have the financial costs, round numbers, as well as those carbon impacts and our impact on water self-sufficiency, carbon neutrality, and zero waste. So the big goals of the city. We're working with our water resources team as well to understand their needs on resiliency and those sorts of things. How can this be in service of those things? With our mobility team on the bike and ped action master plans, I think is the right set of words. Right, so all of those big plans that the city has out there, we want to make sure that this is in harmony with that as well.
Hi, I have a question. First of all, thanks for the great presentation. And my first thoughts was on housing. I know it's a tricky subject because it's directly related to emotions, but is there a way to, to compare it with the existing parks of this caliber across the world, if you may, Mm-hmm. And how do they incorporate housing into a park of this size and magnitude?
Absolutely. And so we have a consultant named Sasaki, and they're a world-renowned landscape firm. They have done a lot. They've done more than 10 airport conversions for across the globe, as well as they've done lots of different types of parks and looked at very different capital stacks on how they're funded. If you've had a chance to take a look at, I think it's Virtual Education Session 2, talks a little bit about some of that. It didn't focus on housing, but it did talk about how parks get funded and what different types of things we're looking at. Our financial consultant, HRNA, has done a lot of this work, and so we're working very closely with them to understand what it is as well, and what are those great examples of how this is done, right? Central Park gets used a lot, and so does Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, and there's a whole body of work that has been done in California, right? Because our housing is very different than other parts of the country, so you want to make sure that we're using examples that are from at least somewhere nearby, hopefully. And so we are actively looking at all of those as good sort of examples, and what is relevant for here and what is not relevant, or what would be acceptable and what's not acceptable, right? So we'll be bringing some of those ideas forward as well once we have those 3 scenarios. There's a lot more in-depth information that we'll be able to provide once we're actually have scenarios to say this one does X, Y, and Z, and this one does A, B, and C, and this one does L and M or N.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? But if you have examples, let us know.
There we go. I liked what you said in response to Susan's questions about costs, but kind of phrased it as contributions, positive, negative to the larger city goals. And so, I get carbon, I get water, I get traffic. How do you think, or do you think, sort of about ecosystem part? What does it mean to contribute to, the biodiversity and ecosystem health of a city or a region in this? And is there a way to think about that?
Yeah, it's, we have Atelier 10 is the sustainability consultant, but we also have our wonderful OSE group that, has really been integral in working through some of these things. There is also a biodiversity index that we're looking at applying. That's where living communities comes in, a little bit, the site certification. There's different rating systems out there that help understand how do you quantify an improvement. Right, our baseline is really not good. So, and anything will be better, but how good can it be? And one of the team members from Sasaki, he's actually an ecologist, and he is a complete nerd on this stuff, and I love him for it, because he's got on the site opportunities and constraints. I think there are 6 pages about different biohabitat regions and what they could do and how much you could dig in and what percentage a site would, net us different positive benefits. And so there's a lot of different ways to think about it. And once, that'll all start to come in as well. Certainly a little bit with the 3 scenarios, but as we get direction on that preferred scenario, we'll get in a lot deeper on all of those topics.
Hi, that kind of goes with my question. I was going to ask, like, how are we assessing gains instead of costs, but gains for the environmental aspect of that? And then I'm assuming there's some consultants for the rewilding portion of it, or will that be decided? That's a little premature. And once you figure out what the ratio is going to be, then you'll get deeper into that aspect of the rewilding.
Absolutely. And that's in the 3 scenarios, it's just a blob on a plan right now, right? It would say rewilding, but what goes into that, right? And we've been working with Bob and his group and others to understand like what is appropriate, right? We also want to be mindful about fire resistance and those sorts of things, right? Native plants do a lot better than invasive plants.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are we going to stick with native? Like, is the idea to stick with native? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, that was my question.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about the active recreation layer and thinking in the interest of maximizing open space, one of the other layers, could we also consider layering the active recreation so that you've got, and I'm actually wondering about parking because I haven't seen any mention of parking anywhere. So, and
That's
maybe I just.
connectivity and mobility.
Okay.
But
So
it is on there.
if we layer like,
It is hard to see.
just an example, like parking and then a pool and then a field and then, I don't know. I'm just wondering if that's
they're all
part of the
gonna-
consideration of layering that to maximize the open green space.
Yes, and making those, I've seen a lot, let's say, we've got 4 baseball diamonds, right, in the rounded areas. I've seen parks where they have, their outfields are rewilded, right? The outfield where the player is playing is the playing surface, but right on the other side, right, you're very clear when the ball goes into the rough, basically, because it is a butterfly garden or something like that, right? So there definitely are ways of layering those things. Maybe not so good for the players, but that's okay. Or can we make these, right, we've talked about with our community garden folks, there's ways to integrate, right? Is it one big community garden or farm or orchard? Is it something that you walk along and it's part of the pathway? Like, there's a lot of ways to do it. And how do we maximize all of those things that we want in a beautiful place and space that supports these things? So we're thinking about that. It's going to be fun to do the 3 scenarios for sure.
All right. Thank you. And I was thinking about the vertical gardens that we're starting to see on a lot of the, the commercial buildings. And that could be something that could also layer on top and be artistic in it at the same time. So
yeah, definitely.
I haven't heard anything yet, but I would love us to pay more attention also to our animals. I'm thinking of our animal shelter here. I believe the police have horses. And I know Teague Wainwright has been talking about the idea of having a farm with some farm animals. We had a wonderful presentation from the Compton Cowboys at one of Michelle's event, and they're looking to expand. And wow, could we think about that? Could we think about having a state-of-the-art animal rescue rehabilitation center? We did this veterinarian who was over here and another animal rescuer got a certificate from the city council acknowledging the work during the fires where they were going behind the scenes. Oh, yeah. Right? Remember Aaron Christensen? Yep. So I've reached out to them and I said, please come and be part of this, share your ideas for the animals, because that fits in with all of this.
Absolutely. Tell them to do the LOI. Because that would be great. And there is, like, the LOIs are not the end all be like, if you're not in, there's nothing, but it just would be really helpful to understand a full scope of things so we can bring that forward.
Okay. Are there any questions from the public? Harvey, if you could go to the microphone, please.
Hello.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Harvey Etter with Public Solar Power Coalition. There was discussion about transportation and mobility and emissions and stuff. We got to hook them with the air districts doing, and they're under threat of a federal plan because they failed stuff for 50 years. Also housing, and for both of these, there's all kinds of tax credits and stuff and write-offs. There's a low-income tax credit of 40 and 70%. All right, that's money that's available And also for solar renewables and trucks and vehicles, this is out there too. But Trump's trying to slam this. It could be worked in as a solution to try to go with his tariffs. This playing chicken with China and stuff. I don't know. Anyway, they say all politics is local.
Thank you. Yeah, we are looking at all sorts of types of funding. But yes, and if there's other grants and things, like send it our way as well.
Well, I think that ends our question. Okay, thank you. If you could go to the microphone.
Where's the button here?
Oh, you can also just project. Oh, there it is. Okay. Hi, my name is Lily Flores, and I'm an affiliate of the Santa Monica Great Parks Coalition. I was listening to everybody's questions really deeply, and I thought there's an opportunity to think about how traditional ecological knowledge can be integrated, and thinking about, how the rewilding could be a kind of a core tenet for thinking about the design of this place. So what kinds of cultural practices do the Tongva people continue to integrate, and how does that relate to knowledge about the plants and the ecosystem? I was looking up Sasaki's portfolio. They're phenomenal, but I wonder how this can be localized by integrating a deeper sense of the deep history that's embedded in the land, but also the ongoing legacies of descendants of the Tongva people. So I just want to reiterate traditional ecological knowledge that can be seen as connecting through all of the kinds of propositions that you're taking into consideration. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Shannon was reminding me. We did work with UCLA and Travis Longcore's group last year, I guess, they did a whole native ecology project on the airport site and really dug into what has been for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And so that was really informative. We are also finally started to get some traction with our indigenous communities and starting to engage more meaningfully. And so we're hoping to bring that forward as well that way. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Amber. And I think this brings this joint meeting to a close. We'll adjourn here. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here. And thank you, Amber.